people are inundated with information. It's almost information overload in health right now. And there's many contrary opinions and research about whether we should be vegan or we should be keto or we should intermittent fast for 16 hours or 12 hours or what we should do about sleep or any number of things in our lives. So we do our best to try to pull things down into themes, common themes that if you can turn them into a lifestyle habit, can actually make incremental change in your path towards health span. Us, we believe in health span rather than longevity because none of us know our due date. Whereas if we can be as healthy as long as we are going to live, that's our ultimate goal. So I can just summarize again what we've done with the fitness trekking movement towards flow hiking. We were under the illusion that the harder people worked, the more calories they would burn, the more fat they would lose. And when we first started the program 24 years ago, everybody wanted to lose fat. That was the number one indicator that they were in balanced health. Of course, we didn't know about sleep or detox or stress, trauma, and our nervous system then, or our gut biome, or our epigenetics. But it was the number one thing everybody thought is if I get my weight down to this level, then my blood pressure likely will come down and my chance for metabolic disease will come down and I should live a healthier life. We now know that that's not true. It's much more complex than that, and it's much more integrated. It's about hormones, and it's about lifestyle choices, and it's about our sleep, probably the biggest mover in terms of our health span. So anyways, back to the original stage, we thought if we just pushed everybody hard, even though we have 4 guides leading 4 different groups of a bell curve of fitness of any week of our 16 guests, 1 to 3 people who are still not active and they're office athletes, and 1 to 3 people who are doing marathons, and the majority of them in the middle of the bell curve, that if we had everybody working so hard in their breathing and their cardio that they couldn't talk, they would get their greatest success. Then we were surprised when we introduced forest bathing 3 years ago. And forest bathing is a mindfulness process. Thank you, Judy. A mindfulness process where you are invited to invoke different sense organs while you're immersed in nature. And so that you pay attention, you're in presence, and you're embodied in your senses in nature. And when we do that as a human being, we are genetically wired to be able to become very relaxed and calm. We initiate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and digest nervous system. Same nervous system you'd have if you're having a nice little afternoon nap. That nervous system then works with our hormones to lower cortisol. When we're in the other nervous system that we employ at work most of the time, we're in a sympathetic fight and flight, get problem solved quick as possible nervous system. That nervous system is supported by the hormones that include cortisol, which revs us up, focuses our mind, and makes us vigilant and diligent. When that hormone is up relentlessly, day after week, after month, after year, we are basically in chronic stress. And chronic stress is proven through research and supported by the World Health Organization, Mayo Clinic, Harvard Health, to be the number one cause of the majority of the illnesses of our day. Because chronic stress leads to inflammation, a chronic inflammatory response that then causes plaque to form in our arteries, causes our management of the hormone insulin and our blood sugars to go off, and many other things, including messing up with our sleep and our immune system and our digestive system. And that's why it's therefore the main cause of 90% of our illnesses of this epoch. Forest bathing is a tool that people can use to drop cortisol by going into that parasympathetic state, by being present in nature. In as little as 20 minutes, you can lower cortisol and bathe your brain with the same feel-good hormones that you get from guacamole, chips, and a glass of wine during happy hour. The difference is that trifecta of carb, fat, and salt does not lower cortisol. It just masks it momentarily. So doing forest bathing or meditation or doing yoga where we might connect the mind and the body in the present moment, in 20 minutes, we can lower that stress hormone and get the same feel-good hormones. And we call that a primary satisfaction. It's a flow state that we're in, or a mind-body connective state. If we were going to be in nature and try to listen and see and smell and feel in our skin the breeze or the sunlight and be talking to a friend, it takes 50 minutes because we're not fully present to our senses moment to moment. We're busy thinking and then expressing those thoughts in conversation. So being present without thinking or being distracted only takes 20 minutes. Being distracted, it takes longer, 50 minutes. So you can save 30 minutes by being mindfully embodied and present in nature. When we did this process, guests who had been with us for many years came out of it and said, you know, I've hiked with you for like 8 times at Mountain Trek and I've never heard a bird. I've never seen a squirrel, never felt the wind on my skin, never smelt the bark of a tree. And I went, oh my God, we've been doing it wrong. We've been pushing people so hard and focusing just on their cardiovascular numbers and output that we're actually keeping them in a state of striving, of working as hard as they possibly could in any one of those 4 groups. And their heads were down, and they were telling us they just could see the heels of the guide in front of them, and they basically weren't immersed in nature. Sure, it was a beautiful gym in a grand sense, but they weren't noticing the nuances. They weren't savoring their senses in that experience. So last year, Katya and I decided to turn down the speed of all 4 groups by 15%. To take us out of that 65 to 85% range of cardiovascular output to more like a 60 to 75% range, a zone 2 level of cardio output. And then we self-studied at the end of the year because we do the bioimpedic scales for everybody who wants to do it, and girth measurements and blood pressure testing coming in and out of the program. And we were shocked actually to see that fat loss actually went up by 12% overall on the whole 300 plus people of that year. It confirmed that if we just slowed people down enough that they could be in their bodies, be in their posture, notice their sensorial experience, cortisol could come down, and that allows the body to let go of calories. It's almost impossible to lose fat if we're under stress. And we've experimented that inadvertently with people who've come to Mountain Trek who go to the gym before yoga, go to the gym after the workout, go to the gym again after the evening workout, which we used to make everybody do after dinner, and then again before bed. All of that to try to lose more fat. And those people actually lost the least amount of fat because they were so driven. They were under obsession, which is really a form of stress. So again, this year we did flow hiking. The guests really love it. Everybody's happy being able to be completely immersed in nature and noticing the subtle nuances of everything, the colors of mushrooms and the flowers in the spring, and smelling things and feeling sunlight on their skin. And that enjoyment is part of the joy that comes from being in flow state, contributes to the lowering of cortisol. And again, people were happy with their body composition changes. So I just wanted to lay that out for those alumni participating here tonight that didn't come in the last 2 years, so you can understand why we've been doing that and the success we've seen and the success the guests have had in both in terms of a felt sense and state that they got to achieve while they were hiking and their actual physical results. So any questions about that or forest breathing or anything?
We got a couple questions in the chat, Kirk. I'll interject on.
Please.
It's more of the specifics of how to flow trek. and the nuances of it. And if you want to wait on that, I'm happy to, or if you want to jump in, ready for that, ready to go into the
Sure,
nuances.
I can go into
Okay.
that.
Um,
Well, we believe in using trekking poles. As you saw in the article, we've used them even before I started working for Mountain Trek over 25 years ago. They do give us more of a full body workout. On the flats and the uphills, they become a propulsion tool, and on the downhills, they become a shock absorber so that we're not compressing our knee joint on every step. We're loading through the body, through the arms and down the poles, part of our body weight, so that we're not crushing our knees. And as our guests are aging, that becomes a significant, important thing to make sure that we're not doing damage to joints. The second thing that we've always done is done ergonomic coaching. So we ask people to shorten the length of their stride from a sidewalk walk or a jog to what would be a bicycle pedal length of stride. Bicycle pedals are this far apart on purpose because that causes the main muscles of the legs to go into the power stroke. We use the glutes and the quads and the hamstrings in their best sense when our feet are about this far apart. So we ask people to shorten their stride, ankle bone to ankle bone, about the distance of a bicycle pedal, and to get their body upright, drop their shoulders back, open their chest, and try to keep their head up. Let the eyes come down and glance the trail for rocks and roots, but then bring the eyes back up and glance around peripherally and notice the environment around us. Because if we bring our head down to just stare at the trail, pretty soon the shoulders roll forward and we're collapsing our lungs and our diaphragm, and our breathing becomes restricted. So opening the chest, keeping the head up, and using the eyes to glance forward, backward, peripherally is safe. And it allows the breathing to be natural and open, and your cardiovascular improvements come along with that. And then basically, we ask people to take periods where they don't talk. So when we're on the trail, we might say, hey, for the next 10 minutes, let's just be silent and notice what we see, smell, hear, and feel as we're moving along this next section of the trail. And just notice your breathing and notice your posture, make adjustments if you need to, but see if you can be embodied and present in the environment. And then in 10 minutes, we can chit chat a little bit again. But taking those pauses for those periods of time really brings people out of their head and back into the body. And then, as many of you know, when you hike with us, whenever we get a chance, we might reach the top of a little hill and we'll pause and take a little water break, or we're climbing some switchbacks after 2 or 3 of them, we'll pause and take a water break. And again, while we're taking a water break, just notice the breathing, notice the body, notice the posture, notice the environment. So the guides are working on coaching and posture and pole use and those things, but they're also helping people bring that mind-body connection, a little bit like monks as well as coaches. Does that answer enough questions on the process?
yeah, and we've got a few more specific ones. So,
Okay.
what are Mountain Trek's thoughts on using headphones or audio input when trekking, when flow trekking? Is that helpful, or should we avoid that?
I'm I'm a kind of a Puritan, to be honest. And when I first started working for the original owner at Mountain Trek, I actually was a wilderness skills instructor. I had my own wilderness skills school, and she came and asked me to come one day a week between the kayaking, hiking, and biking to do, barefoot walking and fire making with sticks and shelter building and primitive archery and things like that. And one of the things as a wilderness instructor that I always taught was if we dampen our own senses, when we're out in the wilderness where there's predators, we are seen as prey. And that's the same in the city. They've done studies on women who have been mugged or purses snatched or things like that. If they are plugged in or their head is down and they're not noticing their environment, unconsciously predators pick up on people as prey that way. So I feel that the more you are naturally aware of all of your senses in nature, the less you're going to run into trouble with weather, the less you're going to run into trouble with potential predators, the more you're going to enjoy yourself as well. If you're in the gym and you want to be on a headset for a podcast or motivating music, that's fine. But in nature, really try to be your natural self. Genetically, we haven't changed more than 1 degree, 1%, sorry, since our early Paleolithic selves. And that original part of our being loves to be in nature. It wants to drink it up. So why be distracted by other things?
So I personally have questions on this, and a couple people in the chat are talking similarly. And there's a couple threads here. Is this something that we unequivocally do every time we go into nature? Can there be a balance? Personally,
For
being
sure. For
such a
sure.
limited time person, if I have a friend who wants to read a book and discuss it a month later, I'm always saying yes, and sometimes I shouldn't. And I'll go on a bike ride and put the book on tape in because I'm getting exercise and I'm listening.
Yeah.
So, do you feel there's balance? Is there value
Yes. I'm
to?
just giving you my puritanical kind of perspective on it. I totally understand. And we have guests that come that really want the motivation of music while they're hiking. And we just ask them to keep one ear open and listen with one ear. That way they can at least hear if there's a bear. I've hiked with people who totally were oblivious that there was a bear like 50 feet away because they're not listening.
So, if we're able to do a true Puritan forest bathing as
Yeah, force
well,
bathing, you would not be listening to things. You can't force bathe and be listening to a podcast because
so
your mind is paying attention to what's being said to you.
so
But
as everything that we
doesn't
talk
mean you
about
couldn't go
balance.
for a 2 hour hike and 1 hour is silent and present and embodied, and the other hour you're listening to a podcast.
So you
That's
can treat it as a um, meditation practice as you would. You don't meditate all day long throughout your whole day. You sit and you have a concentrated meditation practice. So if you do go out on a 2 hour hike and you do want to listen to an audiobook or music, take a certain amount of that hike to turn that off, take your earbuds out, and be truly attempting to forest bathe while moving.
I think you'll get more hormonal benefits that way.
Hmm. Okay, great. And then do you have tips on if you're unable to only go hiking on yourself, if you're always with a pet, if you're always with a child or a partner
Or
or
friend.
a
Yeah.
friend, um, what
I
are some
think
of your tips on how to manage those typical stimuli?
again, like whether we're self-stimulating or we're with others that are engaging with us, like we do with the guests on the trail, we might just say, hey, why don't we go for the next 10 minutes in silence and just see what we notice and enjoy just the silence and then get back into our conversation. Um, and so I think we're making those requests with the loved ones we're with is fair.
So if we are heading out on a trail and our intention is to do flow trekking, we shouldn't expect to get into it right away, and we shouldn't expect to do it for the whole duration. What would you suggest are some of the mantras that we recite prior to heading out? What are the top three things that we should hold present as we enter into a hike and attempt concentrated, potent flow trekking?
The first one would be, what is my breath doing? So I'd always anchor with the breath and notice, am I breathing with my belly and my chest? Am I getting full deep breaths? If the trail's not too steep, I could just breathe through my nose, which is very healthy for us. And the more we can breathe through our nose, there's many health benefits that are being proven that way. And if it's steeper, we breathe through the nose and the mouth. And then secondly, I would scan my posture. What's my head doing? What are my shoulders doing? How long is my stride? And then just make adjustments. And then thirdly, go into my environment through my senses. So breath, posture, and then the senses and their connection to the environment. What do I see close and far? What do I hear out of this ear versus this ear? What do I feel on my skin? What do I notice in the smell in the autumn as the mushrooms are coming out? It's a completely different aroma in the forest than it is in the spring when the flowers are coming out. And just tune into that aliveness.
And Kirk, if we have the intention, if someone has the intention of, I feel like I need to move, sweat, detoxify, and I want to do that on the trail, are we suggesting that they would do that more efficiently while flow trekking, or is that a separate
No, I
action?
think that that would be different. Same thing, like I need to get to the top of this peak and I only have 2 hours. Well, if I flow hike at a slower level, I might only get halfway. Flow hiking's not about the destination. It would be more about the time and the process. And that's different than bagging a peak for elevation or pushing my cardio. Those would be just a more specific activity. But if you have the time and the desire to bring your hormones a bit into balance, and maybe one out of two hikes is a flow hike, or one out of three. I'm not suggesting that every hike that everybody does is flow hiking, not at all.
And at
But I
mountain
do
trekking,
find being a lifelong hiker that the more I'm in my posture and my body, even when I pick up my speed, because I hike with my head up and I'm aware of my environment around me, I am getting those benefits frequently.
yeah, that makes good sense. And I was in the chat, so I think I missed your third thing. So first was breath, second was posture. What
Third
was
would be the embodiment of our sensory connection to the environment around us. So what do we see, smell, hear, and feel?
okay. And physically speaking, when we're flow hiking, we're still at a strong cadence, right? We're not meandering. We're still hiking with purpose, and we're
Yes.
able to enter into a pretty good clip because we are flowing. I mean, we are physically flowing as well.
Yeah. Think about it like water. You're flowing along. And when you're coming downhill, you might flow. If you're comfortable with your body and it's not too steep, you might flow a little bit quicker. And then you might slow down the flow as you're climbing up. But it's got a sense of flow. It's not go, stop, go, stop.
And so it seems like the reason mountain trek guests are able to unlock greater fat burning and weight loss, as well as improve mental health, is because we also have such a specific program around sleep and around nutrition. At home, it seems like people should think more of flow hiking as a mental health, emotional health exercise that does have the physical benefits, but if they really want to pump and burn and sweat, perhaps a Pilates class is more efficient for that.
Well, that's a good point, Alex, because this year, for those of you that have been to us many times, up until this year, we put everybody in the gym right after dinner, every day, every night. And there wasn't a single guest in 24 years that liked that. It was like torture, really. And I'm sorry to all of you for putting you through that. Um, but what we did this year is move a few things around in the program and then specifically just focus on high level cardio. So zone 3, where we're doing HIIT classes for part of a class and then strength training. And we did that before dinner 3 days a week. So that gives the rest day in between. And that's enough. That's enough to maintain muscular strength and they'll counter the loss of muscle through atrophy and sarcopenia, as well as work that upper level of cardio, which is also important. So zone 2 is great for long distance, slow twitch fiber, long distance cardio, but then you kick it up into HIIT classes and you're pushing into the fast twitch fibers, you're working on upper level cardio, you're bumping up against an anaerobic state, and that gives other health benefits for health span. So I wouldn't ever say just flow hike the rest of your life and you'll be happy and healthy. It's just we
Another
were
tool
over
in your
pushing
arsenal.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like a wonderful tool. I have a pretty strong meditation habit. I definitely have had moments on the trail getting into a meditative state, but I am typically with friends. I'm typically with family members, and that's quite distracting. And it has the social benefits, which is wonderful.
Yes,
I'm quite
definitely.
excited to go on a solo hike and really practice those three things that you listed.
And even invite your friends and say, hey, let's just go for the next 10 minutes without talking. Just so let's drop into this space and into our bodies and just see what happens.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. I think that's definitely something that people are open to. Uh, it's new, it's novel for sure.
I
Kirk,
think another
something.
thing about flow hiking is when people can slow down enough that their posture is correct, they get less injuries, less joint pain, less inflammation in the knees, ankles, and hips and lower back. They're able to be on top in their body rather than trying ahead of their body with their mind trying to keep up.
And even though you take it down a notch, it's almost more efficient because you are lowering cortisol. And when
Yes.
cortisol is lowered, everything else is so much more
All the other
capable.
hormones can find balance easier when cortisol comes down.
Yeah, so you're getting more reward for less effort.
Yes. And you're still getting a cardiovascular workout.
Yeah, it seems like a really great discovery. I'm certainly learning from these last few articles that we've written about, and this is a common thread with everything in mountain trek, the importance of first and foremost thinking about inflammation, thinking about chronically elevated cortisol levels, and bringing that down before you start to combat it, before you start layering on exercise and proper nutrition and more sleep, even with these elevated cortisol levels, you're just fighting against yourself. First and foremost, lowering chronic cortisol levels, and then everything else becomes a little bit easier to accomplish.
Think there might be a couple more questions, Alex.
We've got a question on HIIT workouts, so I'll just read it. It wasn't direct to me. What are your thoughts on the science that shows that HIIT workouts and weight training early in the day for the most benefits? Weight loss and muscle gain promotes increased metabolism for a longer time. So just timing of a HIIT workout. Is Do
I
we
mean,
prescribe that?
I'm there's so many studies on everything, nuancing down to just certain specifics that I'm wary to get that specific. That may be true, and it may be true for some bodies and some people, but because most of our guests are just barely trying to get some kind of activity into their life on a regular basis, I hate to get say it should be this because many people then won't get it. If you can get a hit class in couple times a week. And now the amount of time in that, if you can get 2 6-minute hit classes in a week, whatever you can fit them in, that's going to help your overall health. Whereas if we laser beam down to those intense specifics, we've witnessed that there's less people that will end up doing them. One of the
So
biggest
your
things we're
dial is
learning right now around exercise and food is if you can even just move after eating, that's one of the most significant things you can do in your life for our circadian hormonal balance. Eat, move, eat, move. That's what we were designed to do when we had to work with our bodies. So it's
if anyone
sort of a
hasn't
bit,
done a continuous glucose monitor, you can go to your
yes,
doctor and get it prescribed. It's very easy. They have no hesitation prescribing to you as long as it's of your own volition, data collection interest. And I did it recently. I also wore one the last time I went to Mountain Trek to see the effects, and it was enlightening. It was exactly what Kirk said. The My biggest takeaway was how efficient any slightly elevated post-meal movement was at lowering blood sugar levels or preventing a spike. You don't have to go and burn all those calories entirely,
no.
but going on a slightly elevated walk, slightly inclined, or a gentle bike ride, a trail walk was incredibly efficient at taking the spike down or eliminating it altogether. So if anyone hasn't done that yet, it's a really cool exercise. And the modern technology is quite simple. You just put one of the monitors on the back of your arm, and then it connects via Bluetooth to your phone, and you just transfer the data every couple hours. And it's probably improved since then. Really, really interesting exercise to do.
Can I can I ask just piggybacking on that? The because now it's getting darker earlier, so like what about eating and not really going out for a walk when it's, moving outside when it's dark? How do you like, should I work out instead or
It's kind of like start at the top. Moving, any amount of movement is the first thing that we've all got to do. And
Mm,
then we want to move after meals would be the next best thing. If we
yeah,
can't because it's dark or it's not safe or it's pouring rain, then just getting some movement in the day is better than not doing it.
right, okay.
So keep working your way down. And then, yes, maybe the best specific time to do a HIIT class is early in the morning because of the afterburn that then will carry on for burning up fuel as we continue to have a snack or a lunch. There's some benefits for that. Some people would say doing a HIIT class closer to bed is better because then the afterburn goes into the sleep period. But these
Mhm.
are all nuances that are slightly better than just doing the best you could do.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was just curious. Okay, thank you.
No worries, Simone.
So we'll end on one more question that we've got here in the chat. And then we'll open it up for any final hand raises. So if we go out and we feel that we're developing this skill of being on a trail, a safe place where we know there's a destination that not that we're trying to hit, we just know we're on a safe trail, and we're able to tune into our senses and our embodiment, our posture, and our breath. Are we able to then apply that elsewhere in our life? So if we go on a dog walk, if we're
Yes.
walking from our car to the building,
Yes, absolutely. The more presence and embodiment we can bring in to the whole day, even brushing our teeth, every single thing we do, that's living a mindful life. And that the more we do that, the more cortisol can come down. It goes up when it needs to, when to be on it in the morning, to go make all the decisions we have to at work, but it's not meant to stay up all evening and then all night while we're trying to sleep. So just bringing that mind to body connection into everything we do is ultimately helping with that. Absolutely.
great. Any final questions from everyone? From anyone?
I think there's one at the bottom where there's still benefits of flow hiking. I can't read the rest
With
of
a
it.
well-trained dog. There's a lot of thread here around dog walking. So the
Yeah.
thread, people getting
And,
their
and if,
movement
if
from
you're
dog
only
walk.
if you only have 15 minutes to take your dog for a walk, I mean, I see people taking dogs for a walk while they're looking at their phone the whole time. So you can still take your dog for a walk and be tuning into your body and the environment around you through your senses, and that you're going to get the benefits.
And you could be present with your dog as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.